That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And we are your hosts of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. What's up?
What's going on?
Man, we have a good show today. Women's History Month is so
Shout out
big,
to the woman.
big,
Clap for
big,
a woman,
big.
woman, clap, clap, clap.
Yeah, and there's great things about celebrating women that I love, but also we cannot forget to make sure we talk about the challenges that women face as well. Because people, love the celebration, but they don't always like to look at some of the critical issues that's happening in our society. And there's one thing that's happening right now that I'm happy to be a supporter of, which is this Finding Tamika documentary that Kevin Hart and Charlamagne the God are doing. A woman who went missing in South Carolina many years ago, didn't get enough attention. And they're, basically breaking down the story about what happened to her. Erica Alexander, who we love, narrates the entire show. And Black girls and women going missing is a real serious problem in this country. And so, the fact that this show is being launched during Black History Month. I was about to say Christmas. You see where my head is at. But
Women's
anyway,
History Month.
Women's History Month. Right. It's just, this is when it's happening right now. And I think that is a testament to the point that we can focus on the celebration, International Women's Day. Everyone was celebrating how amazing women are. But there are still really, really serious challenges that particularly Black women and girls face. And one of them is this abduction, trafficking, and just people going missing in general. So I just want to make sure at the onset that people watch Finding Tamika, that they go and they listen, because I think it's on Audible, so you're not watching, you're listening to Erica narrate a story about what happened to this young lady. And I just want to make sure that people go and listen to it. In fact, some folks have already been telling me, including our partner, attorney Angelo Pinto, that it's really, really heavy and powerful.
I got to listen to it. I seen you post it. I seen a few people post it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what it was. I was dealing with a lot of different things, but I'm definitely gonna go listen to it.
Yeah, I know now you can't be left out. You always want to be in the know.
I have to know
what's going on.
Especially what's going on with our people.
So let's see what else is happening, man. I mean, first of all, today we're going to be changing sort of the format of our show as we start to sit down with incredible people right now, focusing on women, but there will be many other folks to come along that we want to sit down with and really do more of a sort of full form interview. We often talk to people in these 20, 30 minutes and it never feels like we got enough. Like we got to bring Shine back. Yeah. There's so many people that I want to sit with and talk more about their full journey. And today we're doing it with an incredible woman that I'm excited to talk to. Controversial she is. But yes, she is a friend
legendary.
To us.
She's legendary.
She's legendary for sure. But there's other stuff happening in the world, and we can never, unfortunately, just enjoy one thing without having to be backslapped by other stuff that's happening. And one thing for me is just watching the terror that is associated with people calling the police on Black folks.
It's trauma. It's so traumaful, just, and I know what you're getting into, especially this
I don't know if traumaful is a word. I think it's traumatizing.
Traumatizing. Well, maybe I could invent traumaful, because it's full of trauma. So
Reverend Jackson invented words.
Yeah, man, that's the key to it, man. Invent you a word. It's traumaful, because it's full of trauma. But, I'm glad we could laugh. But in the reality of the situation, when I was listening to the whole Ryan Coogler fiasco, and him walking into, what is it, Bank of America?
I don't even know which
I think it's Bank of America, and requesting, giving a letter requesting that he be able to withdraw $12,000 of his own money.
Right.
Discreetly, because, he's in Atlanta. He doesn't know somebody going to knock him over his head. He don't want people to see it. So he hands the letter When you read it, they show the letter. When you read it, they say, "Hey, I would like $12,000
from my account.
That's the key word, my account. Discreetly, she said, gave him the ID. He did all the necessary things, and she still felt that there was something, that was weird or sketchy about him. It didn't match up. Rather than just going through the process and saying, let me run his account and see.
Does he have $12,000?
You understand what I'm saying?
Does the identification match the name?
Rather than just doing the necessary things that you're supposed to do as a bank teller, unfortunately, she was scared and decided to call the police. And then when you listen to the conversation, I heard the officer say, well...
No, the dispatch.
The dispatcher basically said, well, he could just want to be discreet. But, there are officers... Because basically she was letting her know that I don't really know if he did anything that was criminal.
You a weapon.
There was no way... Like, he could just want to be discreet. But if you want, we have dispatch, we have officers there. And unfortunately, when they approached him, he was dealing with levels of trauma to where he had a panic attack. And I
didn't know that.
Yes, he said he asked him, please, could you remove my glasses? I'm having a panic attack. And I know that. So I remember the first time that I was ever arrested, I had a panic attack. I literally fainted. They grabbed me, put handcuffs on my officer. What am I being arrested for? They're like, and they throwing me, and everything just started getting, my head got light. I fainted in the back of the car, woke up probably about 2 minutes later. I really had a panic attack. So I put myself in his position. I realized what he was going through. Fortunately for nothing, he didn't fall out, but I know he was dealing with this anxiety.
Not even sure what
was happening. You start sweating, everything starts getting blurry to you. It's a harsh feeling.
But here's the part that really troubles me, right? These are the people that they don't want us to defund. They want us to give more money to the police and whatever. So now you show up and you're an officer, right? And someone is telling you, this man gave me a note. Do you read the note?
Yeah,
yourself? Do you say, ma'am, did you check his account? Or you just arrest somebody just because it's a black person? Because I have in my life, and I know you have as well, been places where white folks are screaming, yelling, fighting, hollering, cutting up, acting a complete fool. And yet when the police show up, they will try to de-escalate and figure out what's going on before they just arrest white people. I'm telling you, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But it comes to a black man, nobody takes the time to say, hold on a second, is the money in his account? Does the bank card and the identification match?
Yes.
At some point, I wonder, at one point, it sounds like this woman was a black girl.
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so I didn't know that. Yeah, that's verified?
That's verified.
Okay.
Black woman.
And so it's not really a racism thing, although we as even people of color, even black folks.
No, we uphold.
We can uphold racist, white supremacy. And so that's one thing. But maybe it's just that people are stupid.
But the thing is this, why don't we give our people grace and due diligence, right? Why didn't she do necessarily like this? This is another black man. I don't want to call. Let me make sure before I call the police, because I'm behind this wall. He can't get to me. He hasn't shown me any weapon. He hasn't done anything to threaten me. Maybe the way that he's addressing me may be a little different. I might feel a little bit, but let me make sure before I put the authorities on this man, let me run his account. Let me do the due diligence. Let me do that.
Does he have
why don't we feel like that? Why? Because unfortunately, every ethnic group outside of us feels like that. They're going to do things to protect. They're going to go above and beyond. Even if it would have been somebody, a white person would have been like, come on, man, get out of here before you go to jail.
Right, maybe.
We don't want you to get...
Not all the time.
But sometimes, more often than not, I watch them protect each other. We just, why wouldn't you say to yourself, then this is a black man. Let me give him a little grace. Let me say, okay, let me run this account. Let me just go get my manager and say, hey, let me run it. Why would the authorities be the first line that you utilize?
I'm sitting here cracking up because I'm thinking about the video that was just on social media a few days, maybe a week or so ago, where the person went to the bank and I think she asked or they asked for something and maybe gave a check or whatever, and then the teller whatever the teller said, it wasn't going to work, and she jumped over the plexiglass. So when you say that he couldn't get over, I don't know, because this person was on the other side.
She jumped over the counter and over the plexiglass. That's a rare situation.
And was back there like, no, today y'all are going to do what I need.
I think she tried to put a check in, and they said that she owed back to the money.
So she wasn't going to get all her money. Exactly. Like, no. I'm not going to lie, while I would never jump over the plexiglass, and no one else ever should do that, I've been in those situations where I deposit a check and I need every penny. Actually, I need y'all to put an extra $5. And when they tell you that they're taking an overdraft fee and this and that, and you like, what?
I need all my money. Nah.
So I'm just laughing about that. But Ryan Coogler's situation is not funny. That trauma of being arrested, even when I have been arrested, knowing that I'm about to be, I will have all kinds of issues and panic attacks and anxiety and all of that. So that's not cool. Here this man is trying to be discreet. First of all, unfortunately, he's outside in the street in Atlanta, okay? He is like, yo, don't come over here with your money, like with my money. Don't be doing all of this. Go over there somewhere, get it together, and then get my money so I can put it right here and go about my business. Because these people in here be to knock me over my head, and I'm trying not to get killed for this $12,000. And what makes me so mad is the black people on the internet that I see talking about, oh, well, why was he taking $12,000? Like, he might want to go home and put it over his bed and lay on it and eat yogurt. That's his money. He should do that.
He can do whatever.
The next thing they said was, well, if you give a note to a teller, the note is very clear.
Specific. Very clear and specific. My money. I would like to withdraw $12,000 of my money out of my account. Like, this is not hard.
And she didn't say that.
She said he just wanted to withdraw $12,000. She never said out of my account.
Never said that when she's speaking to the dispatcher.
And so we just got to do better, man. We got to do better. Shout out my apologies.
Yeah.
To Ryan Coogler, man. You should never have had to go through that. But unfortunately, as black men, we go through things that we should never have had to go through every day.
Yeah. Well, and it also keeps us understanding what the world is like, right? So no matter how high you get, you got to always know that when you black, you just black. And what Jay-Z say? Still nigga.
Still nigga.
You know what I really want to ask you?
What?
Why do you talk to people on the internet? I just don't understand it. Now, I know I have to ask myself the same question, but I could just ask you today and put it on you. Why do you talk to people on the internet? I saw you post that the Emmett Till bill passed unanimously through the Senate and the whole Congress, right? And you posted it, and then the people on your page said, you work for the Democrats and you something because the bill doesn't mean anything and blah, 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 blah. And you on there going back and forth with the trolls.
Because for me, right, it's just so contradicting and it's stupid, right? Because for the last year since Biden has been in office.
Almost 2 years. 2 years, right?
Yeah. I think it's a little over a year.
Okay, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, since
my brain. Oof.
Yeah, so a little over a year. But I've been hearing everything about what he's not doing, this and that. You told us to vote for him, this and all of this. And one of the main things they were saying that there was an Asian hate bill that was passed and that nobody passed the Emmett Till. I had a million memes in my DM. Yeah, they won't give us this. We can't get the Emmett Till, but your president did this. And it's like, this is the president, man, that we got. You know what I'm saying? Like, the bottom line, you keep talking about my president. This ain't, none of these people is my president. My president is somebody completely different. You understand what I'm saying? But the reality of the situation is everybody kept putting this meme. You got the Asian hate bill. Nobody passed the Emmett Till. They don't want to say that lynching is there's a hate crime. I've seen it 1,000 times. So when it was passed, I thought it made sense to inform the people it was passed. Oh, you a plant. This don't mean nothing. Well, what y'all keep trying to compare it to something if it don't mean nothing? Why y'all keep saying it ain't passed, telling me why they won't pass it, and then when they pass it, it don't mean nothing?
See, you don't get it.
I do get it
because they gonna say something about
I do get
everything.
it, but that's what I'm trying. I just want them to get that I know it. You understand? I knew that they wasn't gonna be satisfied. I knew that don't matter what happened, you ain't gonna be satisfied because you looking for a problem. And for me, I do get how it is because like one of the people said, listen, they gonna say that it wasn't lynching, that they hung themselves.
Of course.
They're gonna always figure out ways. So what I'm trying to say is we have to understand the realities of what we live in, right? And one, you said it before, that you can't just pass one law to stop black people.
Oh, don't say that.
Listen to what I'm trying to tell you. And that's what I'm trying to say. And when you say things like that, they say, oh, but they passed this. So when you say, but they passed this, you say you passed this, and then you say it don't mean nothing, then you know exactly what we saying.
That's exactly
That's
right.
exactly what we was trying to say. You was trying to say when you said it. Like, I know that, okay, past that. Now they're gonna find a way to circumvent it. So the reality of the situation is that we have to acknowledge the full scope of what we are dealing with in America, right? But at the same time, when we see things that we can utilize, that we can leverage to our advantage, we have to figure out how do we leverage them. We have to call them out every time. Like when somebody is hung and we know there was a lynching, and they try to tell us somebody hung themselves, we got to say, no. That was lynching, and now we have the back end to be able to say we're gonna prove it was lynching, and then once we prove it, we want you to charge somebody. Exactly. So that's what it is. It's not saying that this is gonna stop them from doing anything. We ain't nothing going. They've been doing the same shit to us for years. No matter how many laws we pass. But now what we know is that we have legal backing, that we have foundation, that we understand the games they play. We understand the jargon that they keep running on us. So if we understand that, and we utilize our brains along with the laws that they passing, then we can get further and further. It's a process. And that's what it is for me. It's like, I don't think none of this shit gonna change. I don't think the president gonna change me. I don't think none of these politicians, I don't think the laws that govern us was ever set up to govern us properly. They're set up to make sure that we stay at a lower class. I understand that. And I'm not trying to tell you that no politician or no law they pass is gonna change that reality. But what I am saying is, I'm going to hold you accountable to the laws that you pass. I'm going to hold you accountable to make sure that laws are passed that say that we're equal. Even if we know that you don't think we're equal, even though you're going to try to circumvent that, I'm going to make sure that you are held accountable. So now I'm going to always fight for what's right, just whether it's a law or not, because to me, just doesn't have to do with laws. It's right or wrong. I'm going to fight for what's right. But now, what I know is right is backed by law. Now we got all the things on our side. So we just got to stop fighting against each other and understand that we all fighting in the same war. And sometimes you got a different strategy and you got to go through the back door and I got to go through this way, but we all trying to get to the same place.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I haven't had an opportunity to read everything about the Emmett Till bill and like what was the final version that actually passed. But what I will say is, one, people have been working on that bill for a long time. And so having it pass is historic in nature. It took way too long, but it did happen. I also think that what we have to sort of keep in mind, and this goes for those people who are saying it doesn't mean much. Again, I haven't read the final version, but what I do know is that the Asian hate bill came with a lot of resources. There was a lot behind it, money to protect the Asian community, mental health support for them and things like that. And so I would assume that people who don't see all of that about the Emmett Till bill may feel like, well, you know, it's not the same. And that is a very, very important statement. And we should absolutely continue, to your point, to fight to make sure that these things are equitable across the board. And so I get it. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is important to note that there have been some of us, we marched from Staten Island, New York, all the way to Washington, D.C., talking about racial equity, trying to get, racial justice bills passed. And I guess that was 2014. And so for these things to happen now, it does mean something, because there have been people putting their lives on the line for a long time to try to make these things actually come to fruition in some way, shape, or form, knowing that there, again, is still so much work to be done.
There's so much work to be done, so we just got to keep on working.
That's right. But we're talking about working. Today we're talking to a woman
who
is an absolute boss. She is She comes from Haitian parents.
Haitian
So,
parents.
you know, I think it is a very true statement that people who come to this country from other places really take advantage of what America has to offer. And, you know, this woman is an example of that. Coming from parents who started here and then raised her. She was born in Manhattan. Some people, somewhere online, it keeps saying Queens, but she actually was born in Manhattan. And so her parents, you know, found a way, made sure that she was successful. And look at her. First of all, I didn't even know she is not a college graduate. Many times I've sat in rooms, I'm thinking this is a Harvard educated woman. So that just goes to show you that that path is not for everyone, but it doesn't mean that because you didn't go to Harvard, you can't be a major businesswoman. She started her own, and she has her own entertainment company now that's doing big things, but was the co-founder of Violator Management with artists that she helped to launch their careers, from Nas to Missy Elliott to Ja Rule to so many people that, you know, just Busta Rhymes. And I'm really excited about this interview today with the great, your friend.
Yeah, my friend, man.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of being signed to Violator Records, you know, in 1998, which her and Chris Lighty had worked together on, and just watching Mona just evolve into what she is today, and just always knowing that she had that ability. Like, you know, the way she was able to manage a caseload, just seeing artists walk into offices every 5 minutes, and her just having the same face, and them just sitting down, and her giving that energy, and working so hard for artists, and then, you know, unfortunately being incarcerated, and then coming home to watch her transform into the next level of phase of her career as a producer. And, you know, just watching her, man, I am just honored to be able to interview the great Mona Scott Young.
You know, and I guess the last thing that I would say, what makes Mona so special to me, even though we now have our own relationship, but watching her, you know, give Yandy a platform, and knowing that Yandy worked for her at a time when she was just like, you know, being an assistant in the office, and now Yandy is running multi-million-dollar projects and campaigns and businesses. That's pretty powerful as a legacy for any black woman to be able to say, look around at the fruits of my labor. So I'm excited about talking to Mona.
Let's get to it.
Mona Scott Young, I have to say you are my sister. And I am just so happy to have you here. And I know that you and my son have history that goes
We go
way
way back.
Yeah, you guys can travel back through memory lane, if you will. But I'm just so happy you came to sit down and talk with us today. There's so
I
much
keep
we wanna
saying when
cover.
Tamika calls, you just show up. You don't question it.
Please. And same for you. When Mona
thank
says
you.
do, we do. You know? So, my son, I don't know, maybe we start with you. And
Start with me.
Yeah.
Start with you.
Yes, man. I've had the pleasure of knowing this lady for over 2 decades. And just watching her evolution from being a manager, managing top artists in the world, just and actually not in making them become top artists, not just managing when they were top artists, having so much instrumental, you know, influence in their careers, and just watching her mature this. And then
Talk
I go
about
to jail.
it. No.
You know what I'm saying? It's
No,
real.
I appreciate
Most
that
people
because,
don't
you know,
really say
people
that
don't
part.
know exactly.
Right,
so I definitely
Because most
appreciate
people think Mona Scott just started with Love and Hip Hop. And I'm like, nah, y'all don't know Mona. Mona's been doing this in the trenches in the Violator building on Varick Street. Like, y'all don't know the little building that we was all in the office, and every artist was coming up there complaining, and Mona had to put out fires, and y'all don't know that Mona. So give them the history, Mona. Tell them where this comes from.
I think it started like, what, 95, right? Probably 95. I was doing artist development. I met Chris Lighty. He was still over at Def Jam, like you said, on Varick Street, managing with Russell and Leo at Rush. And when he got his deal over at Def Jam to do Violator Records, I was working at the time with the Trackmasters, the producers, and they decided that they were gonna go their separate ways. And Chris was like, yo, why don't you just come over here and help me figure this out, because I'm transitioning this entire company. And all of those artists that were under Rush were open and looking for management. I feel like I've told this story, but you know, we built a management company, and over the course of the years, was so blessed to like touch so many incredible careers. Missy,
Ja
who, you know,
Rule.
I'm still with Ja Rule, Foxy Brown, Warren G. And I'm throwing in the management with the record label because it was one big entity. Exactly.
What about
Busta,
Nas? Did you
of
have-
course.
you guys
We
had
worked
Nas?
a little, exactly. We worked with Nas. And it's so funny because Violator was like, not so much a revolving door, but almost like this incubator, this place that whether it was for, you know, a one-off renegotiation, you know, branding opportunity, we touched people that we didn't even manage on a day-to-day, right? In some way, shape, or form, there was a deal to be made. If there was, you know, a renegotiation to be had, we somehow were involved. So it was just an amazing time. It was a different time.
And you're still doing that now, because even I call you and I'm like, yo, like, what do I say? How
What
do
do
I
we
walk
do?
in this room?
I always say it's part of who I am. I just can't take that, you know, off. That hat never comes off. It's just, I say it's in my DNA, right? Being a manager is almost like the primary directive. So even as I moved into producing, I always say that that's the skill set I brought to the table, right? My ability to connect with and when I say talent, I don't just mean like celebrity talent, right? Because the creators that I work with, the producers, the directors, the cameramen, those are all talent. In their own way, the buyers that I deal with are talent. So the ability to connect with people and to understand what makes them tick, and sometimes to get them to, you know, step into their own gifts, right? That's all at the core of being a manager, and it's what I bring to producing. It's like that special sauce.
It's that special sauce. So, like you said, you and Chris y'all created this. Like, how did the death of Chris affect you?
Oh, Jesus. You know, it's so crazy because that came at a time where we had pretty much gone our separate ways, right? And I think I've talked about this too. You know, you grow apart. Not necessarily that there's any kind of beef. You just kind of move on with life, and every once in a while we'd see each other. But I remember the week leading up to his death, all of a sudden he was on the brain, like in a way
Like
that
a black woman.
I've learned since, do not underestimate, do not ignore, do not quiet that voice when it's just inside you, because, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about it, all of a sudden it was like Chris on the brain, to the point where my husband will say, 2 nights in a row, in the middle of the night, I shot up out of bed and was like, Chris. And he was like, you gonna stop yelling Chris's name in the middle of the night, you know? And I was like, what the hell was that? Because I'm one of those people that when I go to sleep, I'm knocked out, right? Don't really dream or actually don't remember them the next day. And it was this very vivid presence. And I called Lori. Right out of the blue, I like dug her number up.
Lori? So
Lori, I'm
y'all
sorry.
over here talking
yeah,
to
we
each other.
like had Lori was Chris's like right hand for a very, very long time, and I was like, you know, Lori, how's Chris? And she was like, oh, Mona, I haven't talked to him forever. Why don't you just call him? I was like, nah, I just want to know, is he okay? And he was actually on vacation. She was like, he's on vacation, but it was just the fact that, you know, hadn't thought about him, reached out. I said, okay, well, you know, when you talk to him, just tell him I called. And I was checking for him. I will always regret never picking up the phone and calling him.
Wow.
Almost a couple of days later, she calls me. The phone, you know, rings, it's Lori. I pick up. It's a long story. I don't even know if you have time. You guys can edit this long story because I haven't told it in some time, but I hadn't been going out into the field anymore at that point, right? Show had been up and running, got a whole team. I'll go out into the field for a big scene. Yandy had just moved, I believe it was to the Bronx or something, right?
Riverdale, maybe.
Riverdale.
That's
So
right.
I said, oh, I'm gonna go because I haven't seen the new crib yet. Get in my car, we're headed out to Riverdale. Phone rings, it's Lori. I pick up the phone, she's crying hysterically, right? And she's screaming, I'm like, what is it, what is it, what is it? She says, Chris, you know, was killed. That was the first thing she said. Chris was killed. So I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, he got shot. I'm like, wait, was he killed or was he shot? And she's hysterical and I'm trying to make heads or tails. But long story short, literally, when I said, where did this happen? And she told me where it was, I was 5 minutes away.
Wow.
5 minutes away. Somebody who never even goes into the field. So was one of the first people who arrived at that house.
Wow.
So there's a whole, you know, thing there. But the point is, when you ask me, how did it affect me? Interestingly enough, it strengthened my sense of intuition. Do you know what I'm saying?
deep.
And that is when you think about what is the gift that I took away from this tragedy, it's like it almost allowed me to trust myself more.
When you
'Cause
feel something.
we're in that moment, feeling that, having that connection, my gut screaming at me and me quelling it, that's what I've taken away from that. That's how it's affected me.
You know, this, and I don't want to get too far off topic because we really do have so much we want to cover. But that intuition question is something that I challenge myself with all the time. How do you lean into your intuition as a woman, especially, right, in any industry? Because oftentimes, after I have talked myself out of something, exactly what I was
You
thinking,
should have done it right.
it happens. What is that like? So this experience, you think, was one of the things that set you on like a firm path with
It
intuition?
set me on the path of trusting myself more, trusting my gut, listening to my gut, listening to myself. And that's been a process, right? Because if I think about, my life, there were so many things along the way that led me to second guess myself, led me to not trust myself, never having gone to college, never having felt like I belonged in a room, like I had anything to say that anybody wanted to hear, right? Those things always led me to second guess myself, quiet my voice, not speak up when I knew I should have, right? Not demanded things for myself that I knew I had earned because, again, that sense of should I, do I, am I worthy of, was always something that plagued me. And it took a while for me to get to the point where I started listening to myself and listening to my own voice. And a big part of that was accepting my gifts and who I was. Right? Like there's this period you go through in life where either you accept like this is who I am, this is why I'm here, these are the gifts that I've been given and it's my responsibility to use these gifts. Not be scared of them, not shy away from them, not dismiss them, step into them.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So that was an evolution for me of getting to that point where I recognized that, accepted that, exercised that, right? And so, to really get to a place where part of that was also understanding that, everything works together. So when your gut is telling you something, when that voice in the back of your head is telling you something, when your entire being
Feels
is propelling you,
Wow.
stop resisting it. You know what I'm saying? Pay attention, listen. And whether it's your subconscious, God, whatever that power is, right? It exists for a reason, and us fighting it a lot, I think, alters the course of our destiny.
That's dope. That's really dope. So tell us the transition, right? From being this management to being this producer. Like, what was that process? Like, how did you just say, you know what? I want to do this. I'm evolving into the next level.
It came at a point in my life where I was unhappy, right? I'd spent a lot of years building everyone else up and helping them do, what they wanted to do, but I didn't feel like I was fully utilizing my own gifts, right? It was always in service of, which is great, and which I know is, part of what I bring to everything I do, but I didn't feel like I was servicing myself. I didn't feel like I was, really allowing my creativity, my gifts to flourish because I was so busy thinking about and taking care of and being there for everybody else, and I was miserable.
Serving.
But I wasn't serving myself.
Right.
I was, unhappy and just getting up every day and doing this thing. And there was this duality to it because like I loved seeing my clients, prosper, and I was so happy with every win, but I wasn't doing it for myself. And I started thinking about, what life could look like if I just said, let's just do something completely different. And I thought about what I wanted to do, had no idea, and then I had an opportunity to do a show with Missy back in 2005, and that was kind of the start of, you know what? Maybe I'm not gonna take the plunge for me, but let's take the company, let's take the clients, let's do something that allows me to exercise a different muscle, which was moving them into like TV and films, because prior to that it was squarely in music. And I felt like here was an opportunity to do something different. I decided in 2008 that I was going to make the move, right? And I was like, okay, that's it. I like this thing. I've found my way around this industry. I'm making the move. And then, I left. I left Violator and started Mona Me. So it wasn't an abrupt thing, but it started with me realizing that I was not happy anymore.
Just not happy with what you were doing. So tell me, as so many people who are listening are folks that are trying to figure it out. And in fact, in the last week, there's been this big uproar because Kim Kardashian made a statement that if people want to be successful, get the fuck up. We say curse words on the show.
Get the fuck up
and work.
Do the work.
People get mad they're mad at her. I feel like what she's saying is true because there are a lot of people who don't necessarily want to work for what it is that they claim they want. Now, there's one side of it, because then there have been others who have said, well, people do work every day. Right. They go to work every day.
I think it wasn't the message. I think it was the messenger.
It's the messenger.
Right, exactly. Because I don't think there's anybody who would say, don't work hard for what you want and it's just going to come to you magically.
Right.
I think the idea. But, the one thing I will say, and I don't disagree with you because I was just like, okay, I get it. But, Kim, they don't want to hear it from you.
They don't want to hear it from
you.
Right.
They've worked to some extent. Yes, they've had certain things that allowed their path to, maybe be a lot easier than some other folks have experienced. But I cannot look at that family and say they are
don't
not
work.
on the ultimate grind ever.
All the time.
Right? All the time.
That's
all the
right.
time. Because you think about it, they could have sat back at multiple points in their journeys and been like, okay, we good.
Right.
We did the Kardashian show, we good.
Right.
We did, whatever the
Whatever.
first venture was, we good. But there's always something, and there's always, a different venture that they're embarking on. I think people just don't want to hear it from them because there's a lot that comes with being in their position, right? People want to see you win and they build you up, and then the minute that you're where you hope they aspired for you to be, they're like, okay, time to tear you down.
Exactly. Time to bring you back down.
Time to bring you back down.
So what does a day of being Mona look like? Like, what does that, for people who are like, okay, get the fuck up and work. So now, Mona, tell me what your day looks like so people can figure out what's missing in their work day that may not be helping them get to their goal.
That's an interesting question because what my day looks like now, right, post-pandemic is very different than what it looked like before because there was a lot more balance. There was a lot more interaction with the outside world. Like literally, it's been a blessing and a curse, the ability to kind of run a business from your home because it, takes away the necessity for getting out and moving about.
Right.
So for me now, it's probably unhealthy, right? I get up in the morning and from sunup to sundown. And this is something that I've really had to stop and check myself on because I've lost perspective on, that balance because now I'm in the home. Before I used to leave, I'd come home. I used to talk about there was this period of declawing as I drove home, so by the time I walked through the door, there was a clear separation, right? For a lot of people, that separation is gone now. And it's something that I've got to get a lot better at because I don't want to find myself back in that place where I'm unhappy. I love what I do now. I enjoy, the creative process. I enjoy the business. I enjoy building, what we're building with the company. And I have to pay more attention to the fact that I've lost the perspective and the balance that, you need to be whole. So my day now, I get up, I'm in front of that computer, I'm getting on those phones because whether it's a day full of calls or a day full of development, right, which is part of the process that I really enjoy, it's work from the minute I get up to the minute I go to bed.
So
not healthy people, do not.
Same for us.
Yes.
Same
So,
for us.
and you're married.
And
you
I'm
have-
married.
With child.
Listen, those children are grown ass people now. Okay?
So they got their own life.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
Girl. No, my son, he graduated. He's, been working for the last couple of years. Thank God for the pandemic because it brought my baby home. So he lives in the house, but he's constantly looking for a place. My daughter is now at, Clark, Atlanta, and so she's out of the house and staying in the dorms, but we're quasi empty nesters. Which is what makes it bad as well, because this should be those greater later
years.
years.
So what is your husband saying like this? He say, get off that computer. He grab it sometimes.
Sometimes he does, but he also understands that I'm also singularly focused, right? When I set my mind to getting something done, it's happening today,
And that's what it takes for marriage to be successful. You have to understand your partner. You have to realize who they are, and you have to push them in that. You have to support them within who they are.
Absolutely.
So it's a good balance. He's my guy.
You like love that husband, huh?
That's my guy.
I do, because we have fun together. We laugh about the same things. Like, he, again, like you said, knows when it's like, all right, put that phone down. In the middle of the day, he'll send me some stupid meme that'll have me cracking up in the middle of a Zoom call. Because he knows me, and he knows how to work with me. When I say work with me, I mean work with who I am in totality, the crazy, the driven, everything about me.
Do you think you're controlling, especially for your kids? Like, do you think you like?
Interestingly enough, am I controlling? Yes. With my kids, not so much. What we have is a very open relationship, which is good, right?
Okay, good.
So I'm very upfront about, yes, like, they have this text chain where he's sending my son apartments, and I'm like, I hate it here. Why am I even, I'm like leaving the chat. So they know the things about me, but not overbearing, because especially for my daughter, it was important that I be responsible for an independent thinking, open-minded, assertive, confident woman. I knew the world that I was sending her out into, right? So we had a great evolution with our relationship, because I'll tell you, we went through that whole phase where it was like, oh, I should have took a broomstick to you a long time ago. But now, we've worked through that in a very open way. But no, my son, was always my mama's boy, but not overbearing.
But we do that too. Yeah. We've been talking about this to our girls and boys. We raise the hell out of our girls and love up on our boys.
Yes.
And then in the end, it's kind of like, is it good or not? Iyanla Van Zant told me one day that I needed to stop mothering my son. She was like, you are doing way too much. And she said at one point, her son went to prison, and he told her that was the most important time in his life, because he got away from her and grew up.
Yes.
She had been all on top of him.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this is crazy, but I posted her conversation with me online, and there were so many Black women to come and say, I think I'm doing it too.
Yeah, you know what it is? I was blessed, fortunate that, Sean, very present, right? So yes, there were times where he'd be like, you're being ridiculous, leave him alone, So I had that system of checks and balances. But yes, I could see how that could have very easily happened if there wasn't that counterbalance, that presence that, balanced it out. So it was okay for me to be the smothering mom, because he had the balance of Sean being like, I don't care what your mother just said, you're going to go out on these streets and figure this out. Because she ain't going to be around. Absolutely.
So let's move into Love and Hip Hop. Okay, so Love and Hip Hop. What was the initial goal and direction when you started it? Like, what was the goal and the direction that you had?
I mean, the interesting thing is there wasn't a goal and direction for Love and Hip Hop per se in the beginning, because it didn't start as Love and Hip Hop, right? Yandy, you guys know well, was
our
sister. Yes. Well, your sister, my daughter.
Yes.
Was with me for a very long time, coming right out of college, and then she'd gone off to, do her own thing and connected with Jim Jones. And when I started Mona Me, Yandy came back into the fold, brought Jim as a client, and was like, there's this show that I've had at Viacom that we've been trying to figure out at VH1 at the time, that we've been trying to figure out for the last couple of years. I had met Jim Ackerman, the executive, as I was navigating getting the company up and running. And when I went to him and I was like, oh yeah, Yandy mentioned this show. He's like, yeah, we've been trying to figure this thing out, but would love your involvement. And there were also these two guys who were just creatives. I believe Stefan and Toby were like cameraman and sound guy respectively, that were already connected to the project. And when I came in, there were several iterations, right? First it was Jim and the Family Jones, or Chrissy and the Family Jones. You know, it was first the show about Jim Jones. Then it was the show about Jim and his family, right? Mama Jones and Chrissy, before it became Love and Hip Hop. And that was a result of, first Jim didn't want to do a reality show. Then, okay, it's great, his mother's funny, the dynamic with Chrissy and Mama Jones is funny, but we need to expand the cast, especially because when, you know, you were watching TV, you were seeing Housewives of Atlanta and some of these other shows that were ensemble female casts. So the Love and Hip Hop we know today was an evolution, right? That started with the Jim Jones show. But what I did bring to that evolution was this concept that, you know, Jim is great and he's one faction of a world that, and I one day may talk about who was the true inspiration in my head, because there were so many of the girlfriends and stuff that I got to know through management, right? I was the person, like they'd be calling like, yo, she wilding out. She can't come out of the road, Mona. Give her an excuse to go home. Oh, damn, that voice gave it away.
Almost. Look, we trying to get some exclusives here. We trying to go viral.
But you know, there was a lot that I witnessed and a lot that I, you know, had a lot of
that
shoulders, a lot that I managed. Thank you very much. That's it right there. That was like, damn. You know, this world, people would not believe the stuff that goes on, and getting to know these women and then going like, oh, because, you know, half the time I'm going to be like, girl,
stop.
You know, stop. It's never going to happen. It was like, here's an opportunity to not only let their voices be heard, but always from the very beginning for me, it was give them an opportunity to take these lives that they're living anyway, that are crazy, larger than life, fascinating, right? And then get something out of it. Because a lot of times, those relationships lasted for a long time.
Yeah.
And when they were over, they were done.
Yeah.
They were done. And all you got is a bunch of pictures and, you know, ticket stubs. Right?
Okay,
all access passes.
So let's go to that. You help them make money.
It was about help you make money, help you figure out whatever it is at the time. It wasn't the brand, but now it's, what is your brand? What do you want to represent? What do you want to do with your life, right? Whether it's you have this aspiration of being an artist yourself, or, and I'll say it honestly, you really cannot see the life that you're living objectively,
and you watch it.
May need to take a step back and watch it, and then decide what you want to do from there, right? Because it was always important for me that it be a judgment-free zone. Nobody's here to tell you what you're doing, the life you're living is right or wrong, which I'm sure will take us to what I know is inevitable in this conversation, right? What people have to say about it. But I'll preface that by saying that it's always rubbed me the wrong way that there are people who want to look at someone else's life, a life you've never lived, right? Shoes you have never been in, and sit from where you're sitting and make past judgment.
Well, but there is this thought that our dirty laundry should not be aired out, especially since Black folks in life in general already have enough that's out there in the world that has created sort of negative ideas about who we are. And so now to have a brand that is actually exposing some of that negativity, I think that might be what some folks felt like, let's just hide it or put it in.
Well, the purpose of the brand was not to expose negativity, right? That's taking an entire sum of a group of people, the lives that they were actually living, the experiences that they actually had that led them to these lives, and to sum it up and say, this entire race's dirty laundry, and we do not want to give you exposure. You are the faction of this larger group that we are ashamed of, and we want to sweep you under the rug, right? To me, that was never, what the show was intended to be. This show was like, all of these different shows are showing different subcultures, different areas of people's lives, different groups of people. Some we're familiar with, some we've never seen before. Who knew they were ice truckers? Who knew they were, there's there is an industry that exists, and within that industry, there are, the celebrities that we all know and love, and then the people that surround them. We're focusing on the women who love these men, date these men, make sacrifices for this, world, this genre, are pursuing their dreams. Very specific group of people. So if the idea is, you know what, because we have not had an opportunity, we get it, these people exist, but let's do a few more other kinds of shows about Black people, and you all wait, we don't want to shine a light on your lives yet, right? If that was the thinking, then I didn't get that memo, right? My goal was to tell stories. I was a storyteller, a producer, a content creator. I'm gonna tell stories. I wanna tell them from a place that I know, first of all, right? And here is a world that I navigated for 20-something years. I've seen these relationships, I've seen these women, I've seen, what this world is behind the glitz and glamour, and people would be surprised. They'd have no idea.
Were you in the editing room all throughout this, or were other
Well,
people kind of responsible for that?
There's a collective, right? And the thing is that then there's the network. They are the ultimate, end all be all. Because unfortunately, it wasn't a situation where I was shooting the show myself, editing it myself, and then going to the network. That show was millions of dollars per season. So there was the network, and once you give them your cut, they have their edits and they come back and there's a process. So no, I wasn't the end all be all, but I also tried as much as I could. No, I tried as much as I could to talk to the talent about being mindful about what they put on screen, right? Because at that point, there's a body of work here that is going to be edited, right? So if there's anything that you don't want at all, right, then I don't know this information until they give it to me, right? Half the stuff that ends up on the screen is because they said it, right? So it was always funny to me when they'd be like, well, you made me say, I'm like, I didn't even know this thing until you said it. So they're in my opinion, when I look at it in totality, right, there's always the positives and the negatives of every situation. You weigh it, you take a look at it as a whole. When I look at the experience of Love and Hip Hop and what it's represented, for the talent that has gone through the show and for, myself, of course, and for the opportunity to open doors for other Black television, for there to be, a willingness by executives to allow other shows to exist because there was such a massive audience, I would say that it was worth it. It was worth it.
And I was about to ask the exact same question, and you gave the answer before I even answered.
Oh, I knew where you were going.
You knew. You was already there. You was already there. So ultimately, you feel like it benefited the culture. There are a lot of people who would say that it wasn't, but ultimately, when you look at what it accomplished based on opening doors and exposing and giving people opportunities, that it basically helped the culture.
I would say that it definitely helped bring awareness. It helped open doors. It helped provide a platform. It helped with financial empowerment, right? Because when I look at our cast and I look at the things that they've been able to accomplish, I remember the first conversation with Rashida, who was like, I've been on my grind trying to get my career up and running. Missy was the one who called me and was like, yo, that little show you got, my girl Rashida, I'd love for you to meet with her and give her a shot. And now I look at restaurants and, clothing stores. I love going through social media and
She's
seeing
the flyest chick on the internet, honey. I go on her page and I tell her all the time. I'm like, okay, well let me see. So you got that dress and those shoes. And when I go to Atlanta, sometimes I don't even pack stuff. I just like run to her, get a couple of things.
I've texted her like, where do you keep all this is what I want to know. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But it's, Yandy.
Of course. Yandy.
Remember Yandy coming to me with that gap in her tooth talking about, I can't do television. What are you? I'm like, trust me, Yandy. You know what I'm saying? There's something here. And seeing her now. So
Even Mendices, like
Mendices.
watching him blossom.
He never wanted to be
And
on.
the
grow.
way that he is
I know
now.
Mendices for years, and he was never like the era and where we come from in the streets. Like, you just don't get on TV and talk.
right.
So you watch him the first season, like he probably didn't want to say a word. Like street
He
dudes,
barely,
like, what are you doing up there? Like,
now I'm watching
now
him.
you watch him evolve
Yes,
into this person.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So are there any things that you regret?
Right.
Are there
Things
any
you would do
regrets,
differently.
Things that you would do differently?
Well, let me put this question
Okay.
in this context first, because you
Okay.
mentioned already, and you know, this idea of people judging, this
Sure.
judgment.
Yes.
So at one point, I remember even me coming into this space. I was pretty young, but I had this idea of what women empowerment looked like, and Love and Hip Hop totally rubbed me the wrong way, right? The fighting and all that. I didn't know Yandy. Now that I have met these women, and not just folks from Love and Hip Hop, also, Jennifer Williams, Basketball Wives, like these are my friends. They're such amazing people. And so it changed my perspective. But at one point, I was with the naysayers and Mona Scott Young is doing wrong, right? How did it feel to go through knowing that people didn't know you, but in some spaces they were shunning you, like she shouldn't be here because she's not
Right.
empowering women?
I mean, shunning it's more, in my opinion, judging.
The
Right?
judgment.
I think it's people who, like you said, had no idea, don't know me, and I'm human. So of course there was a period where it bothered me because I knew the truth, and I knew that that was not my intention. I knew, the conversations that I had with the cast, and I knew what the real, intention was behind it. But part of that process for me of understanding who I am and what my mission was, and trusting myself and trusting what my true intentions were, was about letting that go, letting go this notion that I could change people's opinions, or that it was my job to get them to understand and get them to see, because I realized very quickly that they're gonna think what they wanna think, and nothing that I do or say is gonna change that. And if they don't care enough about getting to the truth to even reach out, wanna have a conversation, open up a dialogue, then it's not my job to change. It's not my responsibility. And so I let that go. I let that go very, very early on, to the point where it didn't bother me that people were judging me, because they were even judging the cast just as harshly. And I knew these people as well. And that's not who they were. And once I, recognized that, my husband, just talking about the support, used to do this funny thing where, if somebody would say something mean on social media, he'd go to their page and he'd be like, look, this is the person. First of all, they're an egg. Second of all, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
It's not a real profile.
This is not even a real profile. And I had to trust myself, trust who I know I was, and not allow myself to be defined by what people thought. And that's why,
That's a process.
It's a process, mainly because we're human and we have feelings, and to deny that is to be unrealistic with yourself, right? So that's why my profile page, I'm like, if they don't know you personally, you can't take it personally. I can't be, concerned with what somebody sitting at home with an opinion, has to say about what I know are the intentions with everything that I do.
Because the reality of the situation is, most times, none of those people ever have a conversation with you, right?
Exactly.
And they never sit down. Like, I've never, me personally, I've watched a lot of different people say different things, and none of the people who had an opinion actually sat down and talked to you, or
Right.
or voiced their opinion to you. And they had platforms, and they were, Love and Hip Hop is this and that. And the reality for me is, when you look at Love and Hip Hop in its totality, it gives you different perspectives and different spaces in everyone's life. And it might be a fight here.
Right.
Then tomorrow it might be hug and we make up. And then tomorrow we might start a business. Like, this is reality. It's
It is our
actually
reality.
reality.
No, it is our reality, because even us,
Right.
like with our work, sometimes, and not just our work, our lives, sometimes there's a fight, there are relationship problems, there are new people that get together, there is me and Linda mad at each other, there is my son and I arguing. This is real life.
This is real life, and it's real life for this group of people who live in this space and world where that is how they resolve conflict. That is how they express themselves,
Right.
very passionately. Not the way I do, right? But I also didn't grow up in the same way. I didn't have those same experiences that shaped me to be that person.
Exactly.
So and then when I look at social media and I see some of the things that are happening, I'm like, my cameras aren't even here now. So blame me for this one, people. Do you know what I'm saying? How did this happen if it's all, made up for television? But again, I will stand 10 toes down that when I look at it in totality, right?
Cardi B, like, how do you get
Cardi.
caught? Like, how do you
Wow,
get caught?
I forgot about
like, you just
that.
gotta really sit there and think about. There's so many things that was birthed out of Love and Hip Hop. So
Yeah.
many different individuals who become entrepreneurs, who become big stars, who found their own space. Like, for me, I see it as a plus to the culture. A lot of things that I didn't like. There was things that I wish didn't happen.
Right.
But there was a lot more things that I see to where people were able. I've had conversations with Scrappy and Jock, and them saying, "Yo, my career." You know what I'm
Scrappy
saying? Like,
out of the blue sent me a message the other day. I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
you
like,
know?
you know what I'm saying? And these are genuine dudes. When you talk to, this is a genuine individual. This is somebody that I talk to and I got a lot of love for. So just watching those brothers being able to regenerate and recreate a career from somebody, just showing themselves being natural and finding love and being like, it's something different. So I just want to say, I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? I know it's a lot of backlash. People don't always have something to say.
And I had to accept that
And
that
that's
came
life.
with the territory. I have to accept that came. I mean, very different from your journey, Tamika, but I know you've had to deal with
I deal with it every
your,
day.
you know what I'm saying, daggers
every
and
day.
swords, but you accept that as part of your journey.
It is what it is. In fact, I was out to dinner with a girlfriend the other night, and she said, "Oh man," she's like, "I'm fighting every day for you." She was like, "The things that people say." Checked out of a hotel the other day, and the man behind the counter says to me, "Man, I've been fighting all over. I don't let people talk crazy about you. Now, this person is in Alabama. My girlfriend's in New York. So we're talking about all across the country, people telling me that they're standing up for me. And what I always try to hone in on is that at least you're standing up for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to focus on this interaction rather than the 6 people that you've had to tell, I didn't steal money. I'm not working for the Democrats.
But think about what that would do to you if you weren't sure and secure in yourself and who you are.
fact.
You know, if you spent your time wondering about those 6 other people and allowed yourself to
You'll
get
go
distracted.
crazy. I've been there.
Yes.
I've been there.
Yes.
I have stressed myself, especially during the Women's March, by worrying about particularly what white folks
had to say.
were saying about me, because they had, in some ways, the influence to be able to impact my money because of how they felt
Yes.
and what they thought of me. So let's talk about new projects, because you
projects.
got new stuff going on.
I got a lot of new stuff going on. I mean, the pandemic, I keep saying, has been a double-edged sword, right? As much as it, changed our lives completely, that focus that I'm talking about that has me waking up and focusing all day long has led to me being able to expand the company, to move into areas that I've been wanting to move into but may not have stopped and paid attention to. We've sold a number of scripted projects, so I'm excited that we're finally, moving into the scripted space. Format as well, hopefully wanting to land a big shiny floor show that'll go on for 20 years so I can retire.
Yeah.
But so it's been a good time for me for growth within the company. And what I need to figure out now and balance out is how to continue to grow personally. How to, get back into the world. Because when I tell you, I have been a hermit.
What's the biggest project you're working on right now? So, do you have something with 50?
We do. As a matter of fact, we are just starting production on Hip Hop Homicides, which, was a project that we developed for a couple of years. And it started with, we were both at Lionsgate at the time. And we were having a meeting. I love when they say, "Oh, we want to introduce you to one of our clients," and it's 50 Cent. I'm like, okay. So 50 was like, "Yeah, we should do a show about dead rappers." And that was kind of the evolution of how Hip Hop Homicides came about. But the whole goal was, again, to, continue to give a space for our stories to live and to get attention. And it's just really going out there from a different perspective and examining, all of those deaths that we've all, experienced, and seeing if there's any leads that have been left unturned.
Okay.
Debunking stuff, because I always think about the people who get fingers pointed at them and then people just move on and nobody ever goes back and clears this shit up.
Right.
So now you're forever tainted, and really diving into, there's a whole community of web sleuths, right? People who day in, day out are just communicating. There's a lot of leads that have come from social media and from what the social media community is saying. So, if we can bring closure, if we can, a lot like you want to do, like call attention, shine a spotlight on, right? So that's the goal there. We've got Van Lathan, who is our man on the street, and Van is great because he's so invested and so passionate on the subject. But yeah, we're, getting out of the gate on that show. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. Brilliance when it comes together. Because 50, and his product I've challenged. We get into big debates about my feelings, very similar to the Love and Hip Hop stuff. I've said, well, why we need a show that is not about people being drug dealers, killing, and all of that. Like, can we figure out what 50 can be involved in?
Well, we need to watch it.
This is, what is the other show? This is,
Which one?
he has the show about the man, but again, still the man, he's got out of jail.
He's incarcerated.
Yeah.
I mean, listen,
But you have to watch the shows that you're talking about.
I do watch them a little bit.
No, the bottom line is, whenever we have these progressive shows and they're about positive things,
we do. People have to.
People are not going out to watch these shows. They're not staying on for the movie.
I mean, this is the thing, right? And I'm not going to say this is the definitive reason why, but when people are watching television or content of any kind, they want to connect with the material. They want to see something that they can connect with. Unfortunately, the plight of who we are has led us to a place where we connect with the hardships. We connect with those stories of violence and trauma. And you know what I'm saying? So it's like what we're talking about is an evolution that, yes, needs to happen, but there's so many things that need to happen for us as people, right? As a collective that will change our perspective. We are all just a product of where we come from, what we know, our environment.
But do you think the marketing budgets that these major networks are investing in projects is enough and sort of focused enough to really make a not a good show? We're not gonna do that. It's not good versus bad, but these other type of shows that might be more inspirational, do we have the type of budgets being poured into like the Cosby? Well, then now it's gone.
But that's because its time has run out, and there'll be other shows that, come in its place. There's Abbott Elementary. Do you know what I'm saying? There are other shows that are out there as well that tell a different experience, and we can't say. What I will say about the shows that resonate for the audience and that get the eyeballs is they open the door. They pave the way because what they do is prove that there's an audience for it, right? Without those shows that people are tuning into because they connect with the material, you're never going to get to those other shows.
And then without those individuals and entrepreneurs who bring those shows, now they believe in them. So when they come with these different shows, and say, all right, we're going to give you something different, they were like, well, 50 and Mona did this.
I can have a conversation now about a different type of show because of the metrics that I can show for a Love and Hip Hop. Right? I can have a seat at the table to even have the conversation because of the success of that show.
Seat at the table, Black woman out here, been hustling and grinding and moving and shaking for a long time. Now, I know with Love and Hip Hop, there were partners that you had, white men. I think it was two of them. Of course, you got the Viacom folks, lots of white people. What's it been like navigating as a Black woman in the space with a lot of white people trying to change your vision or tugging and pulling for their...
Or challenging, what I know or what I think I know. I mean, listen, I'd like to say, oh, I don't pay attention, because that is something that I do try to apply every day, right? Because I'm like, if I stop to be worried about this then it starts to internalize, I start to second guess, and it takes me back to that place. So I try to be very sure and secure about what I know, but I would be naive to say that it doesn't exist and that it isn't there and that I don't encounter it. I don't know that that will change for us. It is the landscape that we have to navigate. But the way that I try to navigate that landscape is by showing up. And when I say showing up, I mean like knowing my shit, right? Having my shit together, making sure that I present in a way that is competitive so that I can and I can curse, right? But I say it all the time. Like, I can hold my dick so that I can say, I know that I did the work and I put it in, and there is nothing about what I can deliver, what I can execute that is less than, that is subpar, that isn't on the same level, right? So that's the work that I put in every day. But do I encounter that still? Sure, absolutely. I know that even in the interaction with, my partners, right? There is a natural tendency to gravitate to them, that to think that they are the ones running the show. Absolutely. My husband says that all the time. The white man's ice is colder, right? But do I think I've made strides? Sure, because I'd like to think that my name, resonates in a different way now that I've spent all of these years proving, not myself, but proving that I can get the job done. Showing that I, have what it takes.
So, we got to end the show because this is going to go.
No, I got a lot more shit to say.
I know you
We're
do.
not over yet.
I know you got a lot to say, but I just want to know, like, what a young Mona Scott, she's 15.
Before she became Mona Scott Young.
She's 15 years old. Like, what would you say to her about this journey? You see the commercial where LeBron is talking to
Yes.
Like, I love that commercial. He's like, yo, we're going to go to the...
Yes.
He's like, believe in yourself. Like, what would you say to young Mona Scott right now?
And it sounds corny and it sounds cliche, but when I talk about those years, I don't live with regret. You asked me that question earlier, and I don't think I ever answered it, right? I try not to live with regret. I try to think like, okay, what can I learn from this thing so that I don't do this thing again? I don't like the result. How do I, affect a different end result? So I try not to live with regret, because then that means like, I did something wrong. What I would say to her is trust yourself, right? Because it took a very long time for me to get to that point.
Oh, that's not cliche. That's real. That's real shit. Seriously.
Trust yourself, because we were not afforded the opportunity to see things play out in, so that we had a roadmap to follow, where we see the mistakes that were made, and we see, a lot of our lives is figuring the shit out as we go along, right? And not beating yourself up when something doesn't turn out exactly as you intended, because that's wasted time. You can't change that shit. And I spent a lot of time like, oh, shoulda, coulda, I should have done, so I've tried to eradicate that from the way that I think, because that's wasted time.
Do you call 10 people in the morning about all your ideas, or you like, I only need to talk to myself, maybe your husband? And
when you say call 10 people,
you know how some folks that don't trust themselves, and maybe people who do.
Yeah, no, you want to have a team. You want to have a brain trust, because you want to surround yourself with people who will keep you honest, right? About whether your shit is right or whether it sucks. Because I don't need a bunch of yes man. I always say that like challenge me, right? Poke holes in my shit, because I do it to myself all day long. And I want that system of checks and balances in place at all times. But I try to think things through in a way that I can also lead my team, right? So they don't feel like I'm unsure or I'm faltering. I want their input. I want to absorb it. I want to make it part of my thought process. But I try to move in a very sure-footed way, because anything less takes me back to that place of second-guessing myself and not being clear. There's so many external factors that will have you wondering if you know who the fuck you are every single day.
Right.
I don't need to contribute to that. You know what I'm saying?
Last question.
That's awesome.
That's dope. Last question. Grits, do you take them with salt
We're
or
debating.
sugar?
We're debating.
Sugar
on
or
this.
salt?
Sugar.
No!
Yes, Mona. I knew I loved you.
Mona.
I knew I loved Mona.
But I'm
Gotta
gonna give you
sprinkle
that,
it
'cause
on
that's
top.
your peeps.
Yes,
First.
exactly.
Sprinkle
No,
me.
salt and butter.
The incomparable, the amazing, the iconic
Yes.
Mona Scott
Mona
Young.
Scott Young.
We love
Thank you. Thank you
being
so
great.
much,
so
guys.
much. That was great. Thank you.
I enjoyed that. Thank you.
That was really good. I mean, she's got a lot. Like, we probably, again, let me not say, I was going to say we could have talked for 2 hours.
Three.
But
Probably 3.
But we have evolved from 20-minute interviews to being able to really sit down with somebody like Mona. You can't cover 20 minutes of her life. It's impossible.
You can't cover her life in 20 minutes.
Right. You can't cover her life in 20 minutes. But I thought it was really good. I always love watching your interaction with people you know. You know, I talk about Shine all the time because that's one of my favorite interviews, of watching you with somebody that you grew up around. And, you know, it's just great to see that, you know. So I just think that Mona, as a woman, none of us, like, there will always be something that people will say is controversial, 100%. And certainly as I listen to her about the Love and Hip Hop brand, I still challenge certain points of how the show evolved and what unfolded as a result of Love and Hip Hop. But when, again, the whole thing you guys were talking about, looking at it in totality of what has happened with people's careers and, you know, what opportunities for other individuals have been sort of developed, I do see what she was trying to build and where there have been benefits from it. And so I guess that's the same for all of us. I feel the same way about myself. We go out, we tell people, you know, vote against this madman Donald Trump, and they end up voting for Joe Biden, which again, and if it was us, it would have been Bernie or Elizabeth Warren for me. But nonetheless, we had what we had, and Joe Biden was there, and then the administration doesn't really do what we need. And so there's always a level of controversy baked into anything you do.
I think, you know, just the interview for me was just amazing. You know, just seeing Mona be transparent, right? And be able to explain certain things and dispel certain myths about who she is. Because I know who she is. She's a beautiful person. And, you know, and just looking at the culture, right? A lot of times we have to look at what the culture is. For me, if I'm giving you a platform to be who you are, you can't blame me for who you are, right? If I'm forcing you or I'm trying to push something upon you, is a different thing. Those are the people that I feel are culture vultures, right? For me, if there's a complete dynamic of Tamika Mallory, just like it is a complete dynamic of Mysonne. So if you get the Mysonne that is the gangster and the woke, right? Sometimes you might see the gangster part. And somebody might think that shouldn't be shown, but that's me in reality, right? So when you actually see that part and you're shocked thinking that part doesn't exist, that you could come up to me and you could put your hand in my face and I'm not gonna beat you up and then say, oh, I thought you was about peace. I am, but I'm gonna protect me. So I don't want you to be confused and think that the conscious Mysonne is the only Mysonne. So what happens with Love and Hip Hop is it gives you a full, you know, the full picture of who these individuals are. And a lot of people don't want to see a full picture. They want to believe that you're this perfect person, right? They want you to believe that most of the artists and people you follow, they don't have anything wrong with them. So they don't never want you to see that part. And unfortunately, that really exists. And I think what the reality is, what happened with Love and Hip Hop is it showed that those people in full context of who they were, and people were mad that why we got to see, because these people fight sometimes.
But they do bring people together, knowing that there is tension in certain situations so that they can get certain things to keep the audience going. And I will say, being friends with a number of women who are on these different shows, their perspective on whether or not so much that they were forced, but whether situations were created, is different from the way that Mona feels about it, and also what you are saying.
But
so
the thing
I don't
is,
think
I
that
hear
they're
what you're
being
saying,
forced.
but I have never seen Papoose and Remy in those situations, right?
Well, that's not true, because Remy has had some moments. Papoose is not.
What I'm trying to tell you
at all, but Remy has had her moments.
They've had moments to where you've probably seen them arguing with people. When there was disagreements,
of course
there are disagreements. Everybody doesn't agree with things. I'm gonna say, me and you might have an argument, and that's part of life, right?
Of course, we know that it doesn't have to be people swinging and whatever. And you are right. In real life, there are instances that happen like that. They've happened to me, happened to my family, it could be tomorrow. There are all kinds of situations. So I'm not trying to take that away. But what I am saying, though, is that with reality TV in general, not just Love and Hip Hop, but every single brand, there is a way that you can create a dynamic that you know already something is going to happen. So that's like me. I have issues with a particular set of group of people in my family. I don't really go places that they're going to be at. You know what I mean? And everybody kind of knows, unless it's probably a funeral or something like that, I'm not really going to show up at certain things where those individuals are. But if you're looking for some drama, you put us in the same place. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not saying it's forced, because the situation existed before the cameras got there, which is Mona's point. It's just revealing whatever it is. But the revelation of it can be harmful to people just as much as it makes, because I think about,
That's fair.
I think about how people will say things like, I'll give you Portia, for example. Because of the fact that they have now had this reality show, you have people, and then of course there was the moment when her aunt sat down and they had a conversation, and the aunt told her, with all of what you got going on, you're not ready to carry the legacy of her Hosea Williams, which is her, I guess her uncle, I think.
Grandfather.
Oh yeah, sorry, grandfather. I don't know. I'm thinking about the aunt and whatever. So yeah, her grandfather. And I don't know if I agree with that, because I understand that real life is real life. And by the way, just because we didn't have cameras around to show you the fights that Hosea Williams and Dr. King and all these other people, conversations, arguments, and beefing that went on, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. Okay, let's be clear. Let's also be clear that infidelity and all of those issues, the same way the shit happens today, it was happening at that time as well. It's well documented. People know. So let's just be clear, okay? People, marriages, all types of issues. Always has been the case. But the cameras are there now. And so the question I asked Mona is like, does she understand people who feel like we don't need to expose more of the negative aspects of the Black experience, because there's already all of this stuff out there? But nonetheless, I think it's good and bad with everything. Yeah. And
I'll take that. Like we said, I think it did more for the culture. When you look at all of the people who evolved from it, and you look at they moved past some of those situations that you've seen, those fights, whatever, they moved way past that. They're business owners, they're inspirational, they're motivational.
Absolutely.
You seen one part and you watch them evolve, and I think that's what it is in real life.
No,
people evolve from the worst. You're not judged by the worst moment that they see of you on TV.
Absolutely. And just because I brought up Portia, I will say that I know her and her fiance, and they are very happy.
It's my guys.
Yes. So there we go, have it.
And with that said, that brings us to the end of our show. Shout out to Mona Scott Young for that candid and real and raw interview that she gave us. Shout out to everybody who tunes into our show. We appreciate you. We are number one. Number one.
Here we go. We're moving on up in the ranks.
But
we're not yet number one yet, so don't think that you don't have to download and share and support. But we are moving up in the ranks. And it's a slow grind, but I'm proud of what we've done.
Because it's real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's real. So once again, I'm not going to always be right. Tamika Mary's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Yes.
Peace.
That's how we own it.